Somewhere right now, a box is being opened. Steam rises. Cheese pulls away in a long, stretching thread. It feels like the most ordinary thing in the world. But this exact idea, dough, fire, something simple laid on top, is not new. It is not even close to new. It is one of the oldest ideas human beings have ever had. This is the story of how a single, humble idea, bread with something on it, survived 12,000 years, crossed oceans, outlived empires, and became the most eaten dish on the planet. 10,000 years before anyone spoke of Italy or tomatoes or cheese pulls stretching in slow motion for a camera, small communities in this region were solving a much simpler problem: how to eat. They took wild grains, barley, einkorn, wheat, and ground them between stones into a rough. Add water, press it flat, lay it across a heated rock beside the fire. What came out was not bread as we would recognize it today. It was dense, cracked, often burnt at the edges. But it did something remarkable for its time. It held. Archaeologists digging in this region have found charred remnants of these discs dating back roughly 10,000 years, some of the oldest processed food ever discovered. And here is the detail that matters most to our story. They ate off of it. The world's first plate was edible. Long before ceramics, long before pottery was common, flatbread served as a disposable, biodegradable serving dish, a surface you could load with whatever was available, and then simply eat when you were done. This idea did not stay in one place. As trade routes stretched across the ancient Mediterranean, the concept of the topped flatbread traveled with them. On the island of Sardinia, evidence of leavened, that is, risen bread has been found dating back more than 7,000 years, suggesting that even this early, some bakers were already experimenting with something closer to what we would recognize as dough today. Flatbread, it turns out, was never really about bread. It was about function. It was food you could carry, food you could cook quickly over any open flame, and food that could be endlessly customized with whatever a household happened to have. That single flexible idea would prove almost impossible to kill. By the 6th century BCE, this idea had reached the armies of the Persian Empire under Darius the Great. And here, flatbread took on a new and slightly startling form. Soldiers on campaign, far from any kitchen, discovered that their own metal shields worked as makeshift cooking surfaces. They pressed dough flat, scattered cheese and chopped dates across the top, and baked it directly over the fire, turning a tool of war into a tool of survival. It was rough. It was practical. And it worked proof that even in the middle of a military campaign, the basic instinct to improve a plain piece of bread with something more interesting never disappeared. Meanwhile, in ancient Greece, bakers were refining their own version. They called it plakis, a flatbread brushed with olive oil and scattered with garlic, onion, and local herbs. The plakis was simple, but it introduced an idea that would matter enormously later. Using oil not just as a cooking aid, but as a flavor in itself, brushed directly onto the surface of the bread. When Rome absorbed Greek culinary traditions, as it absorbed so much else, the plakis evolved once more. Roman bakers developed panis focaccius, literally hearth bread, cooked directly on the floor of the fire. This bread would eventually evolve over many centuries into what we now call focaccia, a direct ancestor of the very dough that would one day become pizza crust. For the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans alike, none of this was considered fine cuisine. It was fuel. It was the food of soldiers, laborers, and travelers, quick, portable, and endlessly adaptable. But quietly across 1,000 years and 3 empires, the essential architecture of pizza was already taking shape. Flatbread, brushed or scattered with something flavorful, cooked fast over open heat. For centuries, flatbread traditions across the Mediterranean developed in relative isolation from one another. That changed dramatically between the 9th and 11th centuries, when Arab rule took hold across Sicily. The rulers who arrived brought with them an entirely new culinary vocabulary: durum wheat, which produced a stronger, more workable dough; saffron, prized and expensive; citrus fruits, until then unfamiliar to much of the island; and a deep tradition of using bread as a canvas for complex combinations of spiced meat, nuts, and honey. This was not a minor influence. Durum wheat in particular would go on to shape Italian baking for the next 1,000 years, giving dough a structure and chew that softer wheats simply could not achieve. When the Normans conquered Sicily not long after, history could easily have taken a destructive turn. Conquest, throughout most of human history, has usually meant erasure, but something different happened here. Rather than discarding the culinary traditions they found, the Normans absorbed them, blending Byzantine baking techniques already present on the island with their own Northern European appetite for hearty meats and rich cheeses. Sicily became, almost by accident, one of the great culinary crossroads of the medieval world, and it is from this exact period of blending and exchange that we find something remarkable. The very first written record of the word, in the town of Gira, a legal document recorded an agreement between a landowner and a tenant. Among the tenant's obligations was a very specific, very concrete detail. He was required to deliver 12 pizzas to the local bishop every Christmas and another 12 every Easter. Nearly 1,000 years before Naples, before tomatoes, before a queen ever tasted a slice, the word itself already existed, tied not to a recipe, but to a debt, a tax, a tradition of tribute paid in bread. For centuries after that first written mention, pizza remained what historians now call a white dish, flavored simply with lard, garlic, and salt, with no trace of the bright red topping we associate with it today. The ingredient that would change everything. That changed in the 1500s, when the tomato arrived in Europe from the Americas, a strange new fruit that most of the continent regarded with deep suspicion. European royalty and the wealthy elite were quite understandably cautious of it. Tomatoes are acidic, and when served on the pewter plates common among the upper classes at the time, that acid reacted with the lead in the metal, leaching it into the food, and in some documented cases, causing illness. The tomato earned a brief, undeserved reputation as dangerous to eat, but in Naples, among the city's working poor, known as the Lazzaroni, that fear simply did not apply. They ate from wooden boards, not pewter. The chemical reaction that frightened the wealthy was never a danger to them at all. What they found instead was a fruit that was cheap, abundant, and bursting with flavor. By the late 1700s, Naples had transformed into something the world had never quite seen before, a city built, in part, around a single street food. Vendors sold tomato-topped flatbread directly from carts and stalls, feeding the city's dock workers, laborers, and sailors quickly and cheaply. In 1738, what would become recognized as the world's first dedicated pizzeria began life as a simple street stand in Naples, Antica Pizzeria. Nearly a century later, in 1830, it evolved into a proper sit-down restaurant, cementing Naples' place as the true birthplace of pizza as a defined dish, rather than just an idea passed between cultures. Around this same period, in 1734, another distinctly Neapolitan creation emerged, the pizza marinara. Despite its name, it contains no seafood at all. It was named instead for La Marinara, the sailors' wives, who prepared this simple tomato, garlic, and oregano pizza for their husbands returning hungry and exhausted from the bay. Naples, by the turn of the 19th century, had done something no city before it had managed. It had taken 12,000 years of scattered flatbread history, Persian shields, Greek herbs, Roman hearths, Sicilian spice, and finally, a fruit the rest of Europe was too afraid to eat, and folded all of it into a single, coherent dish. By 1889, pizza was firmly established as the food of Naples' working class, beloved locally, but still considered far too. That summer, a moment occurred that would change its reputation forever, at least according to the story most often told. Queen Margherita of Savoy, staying at the palace with her husband, King Umberto I, had grown tired of the elaborate French cuisine that dominated most royal menus of the era. She wanted, instead, something local, something real. The task reportedly fell to a Neapolitan pizza maker named Raffaele Esposito, summoned from the city to cook for the queen herself, an almost unimaginable leap for a tradesman whose customers were usually dock workers and street vendors, not royalty. Esposito prepared 3 different pizzas for her to sample. One was simple, one included small fish, but the third, topped only with red tomato, white mozzarella, and green basil, was the one the queen reportedly. The colors were impossible to miss: red, white, and green, the exact colors of the newly unified Kingdom of Italy's flag. Whether by careful design or simple coincidence, the dish became, almost instantly, a kind of edible patriotism. Legend holds that Esposito later received a formal note of thanks, and that he named the dish in the Queen's honor, Pizza Margherita. Modern historians remain divided on how much of this story is verified fact and how much is charming embellishment, added and polished over the following century. But the effect of the story, regardless of its precision, was undeniable. Almost overnight, in the public imagination, if not in verified historical record, pizza transformed from a poor man's street food into something touched by royalty, a national symbol as much as a meal. At the exact moment Italy itself was still working to define what it meant to be a unified nation. At the turn of the 20th century, a different kind of journey began, one that would carry pizza far beyond Italy's borders for good. Waves of Neapolitan immigrants seeking work and opportunity crossed the Atlantic toward the United States, carrying little more than what they could hold and what they remembered how to cook. They settled into dense immigrant neighborhoods, Little Italies, in cities like New York, where familiar ingredients were hard to find and even harder to afford, but where community, at least, remained intact. In 1905, one of these immigrants opened what would become recognized as the first licensed pizzeria in the United States, Lombardi's in New York City. For decades afterward, pizza remained largely confined to Italian-American neighborhoods, a beloved regional food, but hardly a national phenomenon. That began to change during and after the Second World War. The American soldiers stationed in Italy encountered pizza for the first time in its home environment, and many came home from the war with a genuine craving for it. A taste they had acquired thousands of miles from home, under circumstances no one would have chosen, but that left a lasting mark all the same. Through the 1950s and 60s, pizza spread rapidly beyond its original immigrant communities, becoming something new entirely, an American food, reshaped by American cities and American appetites. Distinct regional identities began to emerge. In New York, pizza kept its thin, foldable crust, sold by the wide slice on nearly every street corner. In Chicago, in 1943, one pizzeria introduced something almost architecturally different: deep dish pizza, thick and layered, baked in a pan rather than laid flat on a stone. In Detroit, bakers began using square steel pans, some, according to local legend, originally used for holding automotive parts, to create a rectangular pizza with a distinctively crispy, caramelized cheese edge. Decades later, in the 1980s, California chefs pushed the dish in an entirely different direction, applying thin, crisp crusts to non-traditional, often gourmet toppings, a reinvention that would influence pizza making around the world for years to come. As pizza's popularity grew, so did the businesses built to deliver it at scale. Major national chains opened across the late 1950s and 1960s, eventually building entire business models around one radical promise: speed and consistency delivered to your door. These chains did something no single pizzeria in Naples or New York ever could. They standardized the dish, replicated it at enormous scale, and delivered it to millions of homes, transforming pizza from a neighborhood specialty into one of the most recognizable foods. And as it spread across the globe, it did something remarkable. It stopped being purely Italian without ever losing its Neapolitan soul. In Japan, pizzas topped with mayonnaise and corn became a beloved local variation. In India, paneer and tikka-spiced chicken found their way onto the crust. Health-conscious kitchens worldwide began reimagining the base itself: cauliflower crust, gluten-free dough, whole grain alternatives, proof that the dish was flexible enough to absorb almost any culture it touched. Yet Naples never lost its claim as pizza's spiritual home. In 2017, the United Nations cultural body formally recognized the art of the Neapolitan pizzaiolo, the specific, practiced skill of hand-stretching and baking traditional Neapolitan pizza, as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. It was, in a sense, the world formally acknowledging something Naples had known for centuries, that this was never just food. It was craft. It was memory. It was history, kneaded and reshaped, generation after generation, without ever quite losing its original shape. 12,000 years is difficult to hold in the mind all at once. Empires that once seemed permanent have crumbled entirely. Languages have vanished. Entire civilizations exist now only in museum cases and archaeological reports. And yet, through all of it, one idea has survived, almost unchanged at its core. Flatten some dough, place something good on top, and cook it quickly over fire. Every time a box is opened tonight, somewhere in the world, it carries all of it: the Neolithic hearth, the Persian shield, the Greek herb, the Roman oven, the Sicilian spice, the Neapolitan tomato, the Queen's table, the immigrant ship, the American street corner. It is, in the end, one of the oldest ideas human beings have ever had, still working exactly as it always has. Bring people to a table and give them something simple enough to share. 12,000 years, and it is still just getting started.